It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The comfort of your favorite seat is now your comfy car selling command center, thanks to Carvana.
It doesn't get any better than this.
Your favorite seat's the best spot in the house. Make it even better by entering your license plate or VIN and getting a real offer in minutes.
There really is no place like home.
And speaking of home, Carvana will pick up your car from yours after you finalize your offer. Visit Carvana.com or download the app and sell your car from your comfy place.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Take a deep breath and exhale, hockey fans. The playoffs have arrived, and you're tapped back into your daily source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Saturday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and we are breaking down all of the Central Division previews that you need to know, best bets, who wins in how many games. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Here we go, my friends. It's a Saturday special of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers holding us down, making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, we've been up early today. It's a Saturday special. We got a lot of fresh content out. Make sure if you missed any of the previews from earlier in the week, Atlantic Division, Metro Division, check it out on the channel. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Drop us a 5-star review. Today, we are taking a look at the Central. We got another new episode out tomorrow. We're taking a look at the Pacific. We got to save the talking points, my friend, for this series. I'm going to turn it right over to you by saying this Dallas Stars Golden Knights series is going to be an absolute battle.
Absolute battle indeed. Before we get right into it, I got to give a shout out to the boss man at Ovenbird, Eric Bowling. Stars, stars, stars. Absolutely fired up, but he might not love me after this take I have on the Dallas Stars and leading up to my prediction, but I had to give that quick shout out to the boss man out there. And let's start with these Dallas Stars Vegas Golden Knights. It's the third time these two teams are meeting in the playoffs. Both times before they met in the conference finals. Dallas beat them in 2020, and Vegas defeated them last year and went on to win the Stanley Cup. So setting up the third matchup, the tiebreaker, if you will, between these two clubs. And the Dallas Stars, they come on top at the end of the regular season. They get the home ice advantage. And I'll just jump into my X factor for the Dallas Stars moving forward for this playoff series. And I've got two players, really. And it's that first D pairing of Thomas Harley and Miro Heiskanen. Harley just finished his first full season in the NHL, actually played more playoff games than the regular season last year. And that was quite impressive. I was impressed with how he played at such a young age at 21 years old, playing 16 minutes in the playoffs. And he went to playing 21 minutes this regular season. I expect his numbers to, his average time on ice to jump up. I don't expect him to play with Heiskanen the entire playoffs, his first round against the Vegas Golden Knights. But going with along with that top defenseman pairing in Heiskanen, he plays more than 27 minutes of average ice time last playoffs, and he's averaged over 25 and a half the last 3 years before that. So he's going to be playing some heavy minutes, some top minutes. Thomas Harley's going to be playing a lot with him against this very big, very bruising, bad Vegas Golden Knights team. So for a young kid who's, kind of going up, getting more ice time at 21, 22 years old, he's playing with Miro Heiskanen, the top D for the Dallas Stars. When you think of Stanley Cup champions and some of the best defensemen, they had their lead blue liner be that superstar that they needed to be in the postseason. Alex Pietrangelo, Cale Makar, Victor Hedman, John Carlson, Chris Letang. some of the few defensemen who have won the Stanley Cup over the last 6 years.
Good point.
Dallas clearly has that in Miro Heiskanen, but we could be seeing they have another one in Thomas Harley. Again, such a young player, but the Stars are going to need those two big defensemen, the two best defensemen, to really step up against this Vegas team. Even though they didn't, finish where we thought in the regular season, this is a very dangerous team, and like I said, especially when they're fully healthy.
You can't deny that the reigning Stanley Cup champions are a team that no one wants to go through at any point. But after how good of a season Dallas has, now they draw the Vegas Golden Knights in the first round. Steele, it kind of feels almost like a punishment and not a reward for finishing how good this season was for the Dallas Stars. 4th in the NHL in goals for per game, 8th in the NHL in power play, 8th in the NHL in PK. Both of those special teams are significantly, I got to start with special teams, Steele, significantly better than the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas finished outside the top 20 in the power play, considering all of those studs up front, Steele, and they bring in Thomas Hertl, they bring in Anthony Mantha, obviously Noah Hannafin, not exactly an offensive boost. To me, and this isn't necessarily a specific X factor, you know me with these cop-out answers, the top 6 in Vegas is really going to need to put up offensively. So for me, the power play has to be their X factor. It has to be better because this Dallas Stars team plays a very responsible and tight game. They don't take a lot of dumb penalties. So when they do mess up and take some penalty minutes, Vegas is going to have to capitalize. So I'm going to go with the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of X factors on the power play. And they just have to be better in general, Steele. Offensively, I love your take on Thomas Harley. You know how I feel about these young players in Dallas. Also, shout out to Wyatt Johnston, who I had to bring him up as well, because last year he established himself on the big stage by scoring big clutch goals, and that was a year ago. Now he's got a big season under his belt. I would throw him out as a potential X factor for the Dallas Stars, but I have another one for you after you hit me with your take on that.
Yeah, I think Wyatt Johnson, there's a lot of young players that, we got to keep an eye on, especially going into next season fantasy-wise, but you get a good look at them in the playoffs. And Wyatt Johnson, last year, we got a good look at him, and look what he did this past regular season. So Wyatt Johnson, Thomas Harley, guys that kind of really caught our eyes last playoffs and really solidified them as valuable players in the fantasy realm. So
yes, sir.
A lot of young guys on the Dallas Stars to keep an eye, even Stankoven, there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys on the Stars roster that, we really have to be paying attention to for heading into next season. And Wyatt Johnson's one of them. Yeah. My X factor for the Vegas Golden Knights, before I throw it back over to you, is one of my favorite players, and it's William Karlsson. He continuously flies under the radar as a fantasy stud with tons of value. 60 points in 70 games this past year. One of 3 30-goal scorers for the Vegas Golden Knights this season. 93 career playoff games. Has 30 goals, 66 points, a plus 36, and a 14.2 shooting percentage.
Okay.
He is very underrated when it comes to the postseason. And in 12 career playoff games against the Dallas Stars, he's recorded 7 goals and 10 points and is a plus 7. He plays very well against the Dallas Stars in those past two matchups in the playoffs. So he's going to be my X factor moving forward. Obviously, you've got Jack Eichel. Hopefully Mark Stone's back for the game 1 on Monday. Noah Hannafin, Alex Pietrangelo, Shea Theodore. This is a dangerous team. William Karlsson is one of those guys that can kind of fly under the radar, but still produce at a very high level.
I'm loving that take. And there's a theme here when we're talking about these X factors. Obviously, some of them have been much more obvious, but that's what X factors are. Players that maybe fly under the radar or angles that maybe aren't so obvious. Talking about the Toronto forwards, that's not an X factor. That's just how they have to win. So your X factor of a Max Domi, those are the kinds of angles that I'm really loving. So William Karlsson really fits that bill. And as I say that, here's more of an obvious one. The Dallas Stars' only weakness at any point during this season, that was a noticeable one, and you know where I'm going with this, was Jake Ottinger's inability to string it together there for a little while. And considering, I think, how high the standards have been for this goaltender, not only in fantasy, but just seeing how well this young goalie has performed, when I saw that, obviously there was a lot of concerns for fantasy value, but he has come on like a house of fire. My goodness me, he has regained his form. He has won 11 of his last 12 starts down the stretch. If he can carry that momentum in, Steele, I really do think the rest of this team is going to do its thing. You mentioned the blue line. We know its biggest strength is the forward depth, the ability to roll 3 quality offensive lines, balanced nicely with seasoned vets and young talent, guys on the rise, guys who have done it. It's got to be Jake Ottinger, man. For me, and I know that sounds obvious, goaltending in the playoffs, a number 1 goaltender after all that spiel I just gave about X factors. Jake Ottinger is going to have to be the difference maker, because I think we've seen, if anything, from the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of goaltending. Next man up. If Aiden Hill gets hurt or isn't performing, Logan Thompson's going to be right in there, and they've proven that they can get it done in that sense as well.
I agree with even though it might be a cop-out, I agree. Jay Ottinger needs to be that X factor for the Dallas Stars on top of that first D pairing with me. Yep. He would have been the second guy in line. So, I'm right there with you. This is a big series. They're tied 1-1. This is their third time meeting each other in the postseason, first time in the first round. So I said this to you and to a couple of people actually the last couple of days. And I guess I'll get straight into my prediction. Hey. With that being said, I've got the Vegas Golden Knights. Should we get the prediction
after the break, or you just spit it out?
I'll spit it out. I've got the Vegas Golden Knights in 7 games here, and I've said this to a few people. If the Dallas Stars do beat the Vegas Golden Knights, I would expect them to go into the Stanley Cup Finals. But because of the reason that I have the Vegas Golden Knights over them, I think they're the tougher team. Again, they might not have finished where we thought they would have at the regular season, but very tough, very big, very bruising. They've got a lot of star power, in the forward group. They bring in Anthony Mantha, Noah Hannafin, Tomas Hertl. They bring in a lot of guys. They get Mark Stone back. They have Jack Eichel, one of the best players in the league as well. So to me, this is a very, very good matchup, but I think it's too much for the Dallas Stars to handle in the first round. So I'm going with the Vegas Golden Knights in 7.
Totally respect that take. I think I've been behind Dallas for basically the entire season. So I'm going to stand pat on Dallas. Stars in 7. If there is any series that I'm certain will go more than 5 or 6, and I know that can only be 7, so let me just say I'm pretty certain this one's going the distance, it would be this series, which is why I'll explain my best bet for this series. Right after the break, we got best bets for the other Central Division matchup, Avs, Jets. We also have picks for tonight's action Saturday, Canes, Islanders, Leafs, Bruins. Steele and I got you covered with all of the betting angles that you need. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You never want an experience buying tickets to your favorite event to be frustrating. That's why you're going with Game Time, now the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app go down closer to first pitch. That's why you're jumping all over Game Time. Steele and I have been loving that for Jays tickets. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
What's up, guys? Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils here, and let me tell you about Discover Credit Customer Service. Looking for an assist with your credit card but can't get a hold of anyone? Luckily, with 24/7 US-based live customer service from Discover, everyone has the option to talk to a real person anytime, day or night. Yep, you heard that right. You could talk to a real human in customer service anytime. Sounds like a real game changer if you ask me. Make the right call and get the service you deserve with Discover. Limitations apply. See terms at discover.com/creditcard.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Are you still watching on Fox Sports or ESPN? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day, bringing you the biggest and top stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We're going to continue the conversation of the Central Division prediction, preview, X factors. We're going to get to the next series between the Colorado Avalanche and the Winnipeg Jets. But first, let's finish off with our best bets of the Golden Knights Stars series. Flip, over to you. Your best bets for this first round matchup.
looking at this series deal, like I just said before the break, these two teams, number one, they stack up pretty evenly. As much as you have a lean to the Vegas Golden Knights for obvious reasons, the grit, the size, the experience, all good angles. I'm obviously leaning on maybe a bit more talent in the net on Dallas's side and a better season. This is just going to go toe-to-toe. I seriously think they are going to exchange wins this entire series. And I don't think anyone really has an edge at home or on the road. I think they're pretty even in that sense too. So everything is shaking up to this one going 7 games. And when I look at picking 7 games for the series, just that, will it go 7 games? You're getting plus 204. So I'm really liking that angle. Slap it into the parlay with some of our other picks and our best bets. But if there's any, I'm not sure. This could be a coin flip in terms of who wins it, Steele. But I'm feeling very, very comfortable picking this one to go the distance.
Yeah, same as, hey, we both have them in 7 games. So I think regardless, you just pick the 7 games. You don't have to pick the outright winner, but it's going the distance. I like that pick a lot. I've got 2 picks. Number 1, every single game, pick the under. Pick the under in every single game. I was looking at the stats. 11 playoff games between these two teams. 10 have been under 6.5, and 8 have been under 5.5. They always go under. Over 96% of the time, it goes under the number. So I'm pretty much taking the under 6.5, 5.5 almost every single game. Second pick between these two teams, William Karlsson, 2+ goals in the series, plus 115. Again, he's a sneaky value guy. He's proven it with 7 goals in 12 games against the Dallas Stars in the postseason. So that's the best bets for me. Let's get over to the next central playoff matchup in the Winnipeg Jets and Colorado Avalanche. And I'll set the stage, throw it over to you. Okay. We kind of talked about it a little bit the past week, but this is the first time, actually, the Colorado Avalanche and Winnipeg Jets will play each other in the postseason. The regular season was in favor of the Winnipeg Jets, where they won all 3 games and outscored the Avs 17-4. You convinced me, not convinced, but you were pulling me over to the Winnipeg Jets side a little bit. And looking into the numbers, I mean, I almost got over there. I'm still up now with where I'm going to go in my prediction, but I'll throw it over to you. What are your X factors for the Winnipeg Jets and Colorado Avalanche?
So looking at this Winnipeg Jets team, I've done a lot of reading and digging into this squad's numbers because I was standing by the Jets from the jump of this season in terms of I at least thought they were a playoff team. After that, I didn't really know. So I've had to try and back my talk up here. Kevin Cheveldayoff said at the start of this season, and Ricky Bowness backed it up behind the bench, the Winnipeg Jets are a very well-coached team. Say what you will about Rick Bowness. Yes. He is a really good coach, and they play a very specific style. It's team first, it's responsible hockey, and they lean on Connor Hellebuck. All things that make a whole lot of sense. But when they don't play their game, and you saw it for prolonged stretches during the season, they get exposed in their own end. The forwards fall apart. They need to play their specific style and team game. And I really do think a lot of that channels through, Steele, their third line of Appleton, Lowry, and Nino Niederreiter. That's a very key line for me, and that's my X factor in this series. They set the tone physically for the Winnipeg Jets, something that I think is going to be important against a Colorado team that up front, I'm not taking away from the beast that is Nathan McKinnon, Arturi Lehkonen, Nichushkin. Some of these forwards aren't exactly that gritty. There is, I think, where the X factor lies for this Winnipeg Jets team. You mentioned the series stats this year. The Jets took it to Colorado. They also have the best goals against per game in the NHL at 2.43. And obviously everyone's looking at Connor Hellebuck as the edge here. But for me, Steele, that third line for Winnipeg needs to set the tone up front because we know the edge in offensive talent and depth has to go to Colorado.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I'm sort of going to, I'm going to cop out with my X factor for both of these teams right now. But I do agree with you. I think there's a little bit more grit, a little bit more physicality in that bottom 6 and overall on that Winnipeg Jets team with some really big guys. And it goes through that third line, like you said, Adam Lowry, Mason Appleton, that third line. And you can even look into a couple of guys on the blue line. For me, the X factor for the Winnipeg Jets, again, I'm copping out here a little bit, but I'm going with Connor Hellebuck.
Yeah,
There's too much star power and depth scoring in Colorado. Like you said, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, Valerian Nichushkin, Devin Taves, Arturi Lehkonen, all those guys, star power and depth scoring right there. They're all dangerous at all times. So there's a lot of opportunity for, they might be defending and targeting Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen. There's too many star power and too much talent there on Colorado. It has to be Connor Hellebuck as the X factor. And we've talked about this. When you get a really hot goalie at the right time, they can take you the distance. We saw it with Bobrovsky. Yes. We saw it with Adin Hill. We've seen that. I'm going with Connor Hellebuck because this Avs team led the league in goals for with 304 goals this season, while the Jets also led the league in goals against at 199. This is offense versus defense right now. It's Nathan McKinnon versus Connor Hellebuck. So my X factor is Connor Hellebuck from the Winnipeg Jets, and it's also going to be Alexander Georgiev for the Colorado Avalanche. He needs to be at his best. You really are
copping out. I like it.
I am copping out for this series. And to me, it's a battle between the goaltenders and for different reasons. Connor Hellebuck is the best goaltender in the league. When we talk about fantasy wise and, even just general hockey, he's probably right up there with, again, it's debatable with Igor Shesterkin, Sorokin, all these other guys. But to me, he's probably the best. And Alexander Georgiev has struggled this season. He's played a lot of games. He hasn't really strung, 5-6 games in a row playing great hockey. But the Colorado Avalanche finished third in the Central. So he played a lot of hockey. He's played the second most games this season. He struggled a little bit. He needs to stand on his head. He cannot let games get away from him and let in a couple of fluffy muffin goals. To me, it's got to be the goaltending in this matchup.
Aside from the clear success of the Colorado Avalanche and pieces on the back end like Cale Makar, I look at this as a very similar situation to the Toronto Maple Leafs, not to bring them up again, but can the Colorado Avalanche outscore their defensive inefficiencies? Can they outscore their problems with Georgiev? The Toronto Maple Leafs are a poor man's Colorado Avalanche. Can they outscore their problems? I got Leafs on the brain, Steele. It's Saturday. Sue me. But this Colorado Avalanche team, I think, is going to have to make up for its goaltender. I like these X factors. I have one more for the Colorado Avalanche and our series best bets. Talk about that right after the break, along with our picks for Saturday night's game, Steele. 2 games on the docket tonight. I got 3 picks and my lock of the night coming up.
Round 1, game 1, Saturday NHL action. The playoffs are here, baby. We're going to talk about it all after the break. But first, this episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard, it's not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift your head up and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us Monday through Friday. 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in for this playoff preview prediction series of the Central Division. We're breaking it all down. Tomorrow's episode, Sunday special, you'll get all the Pacific Division matchups. Edmonton versus LA. We're going to break it all down, but let's continue the conversation of the Colorado Avalanche and the Winnipeg Jets. You got one more X factor before we break down our best bets of this matchup, and then the big time bets for Saturday's games.
2 Stanley Cup runs ago, 2022, Arturi Lehkonen had 14 points in 20 games, including 4 game-winning goals. In his NHL postseason career, Arturi Lehkonen has 7 game-winning goals and 33 points in only 60 games. There is a part of his game that for some reason, and I know that Colorado run benefit of playing with some good players, he's been able to perform in the clutch in the postseason. Say what you will about the rest of his game. Say what you will about his fantasy value during the regular season. Very streaky player. I think he can be a big-time X factor when you have so much focus going into that top line for obvious reasons of Rantanen and McKinnon. I don't know who's up there with them. I know Nichushkin floats around. But that second line with Middlestat and Lehkonen and whoever they throw on the other wing, I think can have a really big opportunity here against a Winnipeg Jets team that we've seen, Steele, run out of steam in terms of Connor Hellebuck seeing far too much rubber. So if there is an angle here to poke a hole in Connor Hellebuck, and it's not even really his fault, the guy has played a ton of hockey over the last couple of seasons and also seen a lot of rubber. That takes a toll on you no matter how good or how solid you are in fantasy. That's one of those angles that I think if that happens and the second line in Colorado and the Lehkonens of the world get a little bit more space out there, he can definitely be an X factor, and he's mine for the Colorado Avalanche in this series.
That's a great pick as an X factor. Another depth guy that can bring this, the clutchness, the scoring touch to the Avalanche side of things. And like you said, and that's why I picked Connor Hellebuck. He's going to see a lot of puck. He's going to see a lot of rubber, and the Winnipeg Jets have to do everything they can to block, get in front of those pucks, or let him get a clear view of the shots from the point, wherever it's coming from. So to me, again, Connor Hellebuck, the X factor for me. I like the X factors on your side. Best bets for this series, though, before we get to big time bets for tonight's games. Best bets. Series point leader. I'm going with Cale Makar at plus 850.
Oh, I got the similar pick, Steele. I got a similar pick.
87 points in 82 playoff games in his career. Obviously Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen are absolute dogs out there as well. But I just have a feeling Cale Makar is going to pop off. He's going to be the guy that he makes the plays out of the own zone, makes the stretch passes, makes the smart plays, the correct passes, and then on the power play, he's an absolute juggernaut quarterbacking that power play. And then the Avalanche to win 4-3 at plus 490 going 7 games.
So you have Colorado in 7 games.
I have Colorado in 7 games as my prediction.
I have the Jets in 7 games. So you and I,
you almost had me at 7 with the Winnipeg Jets, though. I almost turned to the dark side.
You and I in the Central are opposing in both series, but we agree that both series should be a battle and go 7 games. I like that. So that's my prediction. Jets in 7. You have Avs in 7. My best bet, it's in the same vein as what you said. And I think, obviously this goes a little bit against my pick of the Jets, but I still think Nathan McKinnon is going to get his. He has had such a good season. And I think if the Winnipeg Jets even kind of hold him to 50% of what he can do offensive output, number 1, he's still going to get points. Number 2, he will still be effective. But I think, number 3, that would actually still be a big win for the Winnipeg Jets, because not many teams this year have been able to even slow him down at all, let alone take him down to a peg where maybe he's not nearly as effective. So let me go with Nathan McKinnon, points leader, series points leader, just like your pick. Give me McKinnon, though, at plus 150. Obviously not as much value, but in terms of backing arguably this season, the best fantasy piece out there. I know Kucherov, we know McDavid, we know Matthews. He has been sensational, Steele, and I have a feeling that's going to translate into this first round as well.
It definitely is, for sure. A lot of talent in every single matchup. Let's get over to big time bets, though, for Saturday's board. Saturday's 2 games, first games of the postseason. The Maple Leafs taking on the Bruins. The Islanders taking on the Carolina Hurricanes. Flip. Over to you, my friend. Do you want to do all 3 picks or go back and forth? I'm going to
just fire them all 3 off very quickly.
All 3. Let's do it.
Number 1, Toronto at Boston. I have a feeling this one is going to be low scoring. I know. It's Ilya Samsonov, but I think both teams really need to set this tone early, and I think you're going to see an absolute battle, tight checking, low scoring. I think this game starts out and ends the first period 1-0, that kind of a thing. I see it a little bit of nerves. A lot of players in this Boston lineup, Steele, I'm not even going to talk about Toronto's, are new to the system. I know that's worked out in the regular season, but the Morgan Geekies, the Charlie Coyles of the world, the Pavel Zakas, Danton Heinens, these guys have never gotten it done in the playoffs. They've had great regular seasons. I'm just saying, might be a little bit of nerves on both sides of the puck. So I'm going under. I'll spit these next two out very quickly because they come from the same team, from the same game. It's the Islanders at Hurricanes. Right away, I don't need to explain this one. You have Sorokin on the one side, a very stingy defensive team. On the other side, you've got a team in the Carolina Hurricanes who allow the least shots against per game and are the best defensive unit in the league, in my opinion. This one's going under the number as well. Give me the under 5.5 at a -138. Lock of the night. The best player on the ice for the Carolina Hurricanes is Sebastian Aho. Aho distributes well. He sets up his teammates. Could he shoot the puck a bit more? I think he has the talent to be a better goal scorer, but he's a distributor. He's a playmaker. He creates. Aho, anytime assist, getting +120. Loving the Aho anytime assist. That's my lock of the night, Steele.
Love that pick the best for sure. Obviously, the Hurricanes, Islanders under 5.5. I'm with you there. We might have our first. We do have our first side bet action of the playoffs.
Let's go.
I've got Maple Leafs Bruins over 5.5 at -130. This is going over in my opinion. Okay. And there might be one, maybe the first.
I teased it up to 6.5, so I hear you on the 5.5.
Okay, if you teed it up to 6.5, then that's fair enough. But I'm going over 5.5 at -130. At first period might be ending 1-0, 2-0, or 1-1, something like that. But I think each team is going to get their own on the power play. Fair. I do believe that it could be very tight checking game as well. And they're going to be maybe a little bit of nerves out there, but I think each team's going to get their own in the first game. We've seen what happened last year in the first game with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Got absolutely pooched on by the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first game. But again, I think, when you look at the regular season between these two teams, it's gone over 6.5. I'm taking the over 5.5 at -130. Okay. My second two picks come from that Islanders Hurricanes game. I don't have the under 5.5, but I think I'm going to add that into a same game parlay heading into Saturday night. Sure. But first pick, I'm taking the Islanders on the puck line +1.5 at -150. To your point, it's going to be a low scoring game in my opinion. I could see this going to overtime, so I'm going to take the +1.5 Islanders puck line at -150, and then parlay that with a Bo Horvat anytime goal as well. Whoa. I think he's going to get something on the power play, maybe even shorthanded, but I like the Horvat anytime goal in the first game of the playoffs.
Juicy, and we talked about him. I think both you and I think. Yeah. He has to be, not like we think he will be. He has to be an X factor for the New York Islanders offensively. You mentioned his ability shorthanded as well. They are going to have to get nitty gritty, finding some opportunities to beat this Carolina Hurricanes team. So maybe he does need to even be a difference maker on the penalty kill, which is not something you usually hear a lot when we're talking about angles to be considered for teams to win games. But this is the New York Islanders, who seemingly have been hanging their hat on defensive play and no bona fide superstar since John Tavares left many seasons ago. I'm intrigued to see what we have to say about this Pacific Division, Steele. Some very tough matchups to predict here. That's on tomorrow's episode, where we'll be back for another preview.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Once again, go check out Locked On Sports Today, the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. They bring you the top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering every single league. They're here for you 24/7. You can also find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. So go check it out both there and on the YouTube channel. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's Saturday special with Flip and I. Have a great day out there. Enjoy your weekend. Good luck with all your bets tonight. And we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.
We all have that friend who wakes up early to go get everyone McDonald's breakfast, while the rest of us sleep in. This is your sign to thank them. And if you're that friend, this is us saying thank you.
Just a friendly reminder that right now, get any size iced coffee before 11 a.m. for just 99 cents. And a satisfying sausage McMuffin with egg is just $2.79. Price and participation may vary. Cannot be combined with any other offer or combo meal.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today.